وهو معكم أينما كنتم. He's already with you. Where are you running to? I'm doing the fasting to see if I can do it. I'm doing the prayers, even though I'm not Muslim. Even I'm just seeing, what's this like? Because I was a Christian. When I was very young, I was reading Mantiqul of Attar. At the same time, I was studying Buddhism because I was thirsty. I was curious. Dil bayar dast bakar. So it means that the heart is with God when the hands, they are working. But when that light, the light of Quran, the light of God comes into the heart, then I'm free from myself. You're too ecstatic. So if you see the verse, you cannot help it. You feel the power of the verse. This is very big, beyond anything human being can comprehend. So to me, that is the whole purpose. Reading Quran, it was a path that opens us to the reality, the actuality, the experience. Every day, you have to take the Quran, and you actually have to take it in. You cannot just look at it. I do my ablutions. It's long before the prayer time. I start doing zikr. By the time it's Fajr, I'm already in paradise, feeling, seeing the actual light during zikr and so forth. So I was not until 40 years old, maybe, I didn't have any profound spiritual experience in the sense we're talking about sadr. Because to every one of them, God has put out his hand and said, come. He's put out his word and say, I love you. God put out his word and say, turn to me. And for me, Mantiqul Tad was a great mystery. I spent years looking at it, thinking about, for example, the Asmaul Husna and how we each of us have different characteristics. And I lost 2/3 of my friends because there's prejudice. I don't care. Fine. I'm still going to explain what I know about the beauty of Islam. I live in the forest. I believe in the sacredness of being alone, worship, especially if a person is older, because most people who go and study psychology is because they have something they want to fix for themselves, you see. So I knew a lot about psychology, actually. So there's an interesting psychology, the relationship between my faults, my difficulties, and my rabikhas. هیچ کس را تا نگردد او فنا نیست را در بارگاه کبریا چیست میراج فلک این نیستی عاشقان را مذهب و دین نیستی. That we are intended at the deepest level to be that witness of God's own presence. شهد الله إنه لا إله إلا هو.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نرحب بكم في سلسلة حوارات فكرية ومعرفية على قناة حيرة من عمان إلى كاليفورنيا في الولايات المتحدة. نتشرف بالحوار مع الأستاذ الشيخ روبرت در عبدالحي، وهو الآن 72 عاما ولديه تجربة روحية وحياتية رائعة جدا، تمخض عنها كتب متنوعة كترجمة لكتاب جولشان راز الفارسي المعروف، حديقة الحقيقة للشبستري، وأيضا الأشعار العرفانية للرومي، وأيضا كتاب بعنوان جاسوس القلب، وكتب أخرى أيضا. الأستاذ أيضا مكث عدة سنوات من حياته في أفغانستان لأعمال إنسانية وخدمات اجتماعية، وهو باحث عن الحقيقة وعن الروحانية. So we're interviewing Professor Robert there, Abdelhai. He's 72 years old now. He's talking to us from California. He has a long, interesting journey in spirituality and in the search of truth. He has several publications such as The Garden of Mystery, of Shabistari, and the Mystical Poetry of Rumi, and The Spy of the Heart. He talks Persian very fluently. And we'd like to know more about his journey. So welcome, Professor or Sheikh, if I may, and it's honor having you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here with you.
So in the beginning, tell us more or give us a summary about your academic, spiritual life journey, your story, the main stations of it, whether Afghanistan or other hidden stations also. And then your first encounter with Islam, mysticism, Rumi poetry, Persian literature, the main people who affected you and kept a great athar on your life, until you chose the path of transforming and choosing Islam and embodying it completely. So all of this just in a summary in the beginning, so we can delve more in the topics.
Well, there are a number of Americans and Europeans who we were reading the Sufi poetry, like from Attar, the Mantiqul Tayr, and we had access to Masnavi when I was only a teenager, when I was just a teenager. So what I mean to say is 55 years ago, at least, I was already reading the Mantiqul Tayr in translated into English, and and so I thought to myself, this is so interesting. One of these days I have to learn this language, this Persian language, even though it seemed impossible because I'm a carpenter. So that time I'm mainly a carpenter, and what happened is that over the years I continued to read this material. And then I encountered, there was a group in London that was run by Idris Ali Shah. And that group, they also translated a lot of this poetry, but it was a Sufism that really didn't have Islam as a main factor in it. The Ali Shah family, yes, they were Muslim, but the Sufism was, let's call it modern Sufism. So what happened is for a long time, I studied that, and then I realized that I thought I wanted to go deeper and find out about the connection between Islam and Sufism. And what happened was just a coincidence, which is that I ended up trying to help some friends find refugees from Afghanistan who were in Turkey. And after that, what happened is the United Nations saw the little project that I had started in Turkey, and they said, "You're doing a wonderful job. We want you to come to Islamabad in Pakistan." And I said, "No, I don't know what you mean. I'm a boat builder. I don't have any qualification except my document from the state of California as a teacher and administrator." So yes, I was a teacher and an administrator. Professor is too much. I'm not really professor. Sheikh, I never use the word sheikh for myself. I just say I'm a friend of the Muslims and the Sufis, and I try to help whoever I can. So what happened is then my school burned. The school I had burned down. So I had nothing. And the same Hashim Utkan from United Nations called me, said, "Please, will you please come to Islamabad?" I said, "Okay, yes, now I will come because my school has burned down." So that's when I went to Pakistan, and that's when I met Muslim Sufis, people from all kinds of different backgrounds, people from, Shah Waliullah and all of these other groups. And so a long story short is I met Ustad Khalilullah Khalili in Islamabad. And he was a great poet. He's the poet laureate of Afghanistan. And when I went and first meeting, he realized I was thinking the wrong way, because I was thinking I must run and find and look and find and find. And he says, listen, my friend, we say there's in Quran, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He's already with you. Where are you running to? You are so that changed my thinking. Just one meeting actually with him, it changed my thinking. And of course, he was not only Sufi, he was a devout Muslim. So that's how it all began. A carpenter has his shop burned down, is invited to the Middle East, starts working there, meets one of the great poets and great Sufis of that part of the world, especially Afghanistan. And I feel drawn to that, and so years follow. I am working there, and more I'm doing the fasting to see if I can do it. I'm doing the prayers, even though I'm not Muslim. Even I'm just seeing what's this like, because I was a Christian, and then I became what we call Unitarian Christian, because I was not comfortable with the Trinity idea. And so, but then from there, I realized by being with the Muslims of Afghanistan, their bravery, their patience, their suffering, but not becoming despondent from their suffering. I thought this is a very interesting, deep religion, and I was therefore coming in that direction. And finally, after going to Rumi's tomb in Konya, after several visits, I decided there to go to the mosque next to Rumi's tomb, and that's where, in 1991, then I became Muslim there, you see. And so that's in a nutshell. There were lots of other details, but in a summary, that's what happened.
A very interesting summary, and we'd like to delve in some of its details throughout this interview, inshallah. So what about the decision of transformation? Because many people, they choose to stay as academics, or people who study Islam as outsiders, or even people who do comparative theology, for example. So you had this search about truth and about reality, or if you felt lacking something, or some people become religious Christians, for example, or for example choosing another religion. You have a lecture about a comparison between Buddhism and Islamic Sufism. So what's that beautiful thing that led you to choose or take this decision of completely embodying Islam?
Well, you see, so again, even though I was a carpenter, when I was very young, I was reading Mantiqul Tayr of Attar. At the same time, I was studying Buddhism, because I was thirsty, I was curious. And not only that, also I was studying in the Hindu religion what's called Advaita. And so, and that here's the thing, is that all of my curiosity led me to, we have what we say an ecumenical outlook. So that means that we say, let us listen to what the other people in the other religion they are doing. Let us accept them as friends. Let us collaborate. Let us learn from each other. So this is before I become Muslim, but even after I become Muslim, I remain very interested in that. And so I actually do become someone that is working with the professors, because as I was telling you earlier, Leonard Lewis, and he said, you know more than my student, my advanced student. He says, I said, I'm a carpenter. He says, in 2 years, you can be a professor at the university. I said, I don't want to be a professor at the university. I want to build boats, but I am continuing to study with Buddhism, Hinduism, and all that. Even though after I become Muslim, I feel very comfortable being Muslim. I don't feel any challenge, any worry. I have no worry. I'm just interested in what the other people are studying, and I feel they are my brothers and sisters, and that I have every reason to become friends with other people who are doing spiritual work, you see. And if people each say, well, we are better, I say, well, I don't care. If you wish, you can be better if you wish. I'm not thinking that way. I'm thinking that God has put something into us, and I want to know about that. And in Islam, that's what I find for myself. Even though I spent years doing Buddhist meditation when I was very young, I spent years. My friends and I, we were with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the famous guru who was with the Beatles and all of these people. So we were very experimental. But ultimately, I found my home in Islam. And I have I don't practice three religions at once. I practice one religion, but I'm interested in the relationship and the beauty, trying to see the beauty in all of the religions, and to be friendly towards all of the people in the religions. If for some reason, like when it was a Trinity, it was just not agreeable to me, it's just it didn't fit for myself. The only time I had a difficult conversation with my mother is she was Catholic, and she was supporting the Trinity. And I said, that's fine, Mom, that's fine. If you are, this is what you believe. I don't say anything against that. It's just I cannot believe that. And so she accepted me, and I accepted her, you see. And so all of these things that I've done is because I do have a scholarly mind. I study things very carefully. And then people say to me, give a talk, and I will give a talk. And I will try to bring the best to each religion, the best as a Muslim, to bring the best of Islam and accept the best of the other traditions.
Very interesting. So you've mentioned now the names of Attar and Rumi and other people, and I'll mention also, so you've worked also about Ibn Arabi, Shabastari, Attar and Rumi, we mentioned Hafid, and all these. Islam and Quran, I saw some lectures also about that. So let me ask you here, and it's very interesting, and it has something to say about your personality in depth, that you are a carpenter and you didn't choose the academic path while it was open for you. You were able to be there in one of the universities and just go through this academic path and be like the other beautiful professors of Sufism. But this says something special about your special journey. So if you'd like to comment here about something.
Well, you see, the other thing that was a coincidence, totally a coincidence, is since I was a carpenter, since I made things all my life, and a sailor, my father was a sailing captain, so we were sailing on the ocean all the time, and then I was working, making things. And when I finally was in Afghanistan, northern Afghanistan, those Sufis up there, they have an expression, Dil bayar dast bakar. So it means that the heart is with God when the hands, they are working. It means it's very safe, because working with the hands, it's hard to have, you don't have so many thoughts. You're working with your hands, and if you say, Dil Bayar, meaning the heart with God, then you're doing a zikr, you could say. So you're given a zikr. And it's usually la ilaha illallah or something. And you don't. And this way you turn off all of the crazy things in the head because you're working with your hands. So when I did that, there was a coincidence. I was already a carpenter. Now I'm with people. They believe you should be working with your hands. So if you read into the account of the Naqshbandi Sufis in Afghanistan, going all the way back to Naqshband, and his teacher was Amir Kulal, he was a potter, but actually he was a great theologian. But when they go into Naqshband, they always say, no, you will now be a potter, meaning you have to make pots and things. This purifies you, because your head is not always working. You found something, and you're in the body, and you also have God's name while you are working. Is very, I like that very much, you see. So this, again, just completely coincidence that it fit very well for me. And so naturally, I started to recommend that even to other people, where a lot of people become very intellectual, the head, the mind, thinking all the time, even about spirituality and so forth. There's still a problem, which is that in my mind, the Quran, it's intended that we should gain the great treasure in Quran. It allows us to feel God's presence. All the philosophy, what good is that? All of the speculation, what good is that? So not just the all of the amazing stories in Quran, but the harvest, the most precious thing is that we actually experience what's in Quran. So that's, to me, the key for myself, the thing that I cherish, that is every day. I am an old man who has done so many stupid things. I'm still a stupid old man, but when that light, the light of Quran, the light of God comes into the heart, then I'm free from myself. I'm free because He is with me and I'm feeling that. So I'm the same stupid person that I was before, but He frees me from that. He frees me from this. So to me, the Quran is about an actual harvest and integration. The words of Quran become integrated, and we feel the expansion. We feel the expansion. It's very big. We're so small. This is very big beyond anything human being can comprehend. So to me, that is the whole purpose. Reading Quran, studying it, if giving talks, whatever. But it means nothing to me compared to what I think Quran is supposed to be giving to us, which is this opening of the heart, sadr. So I talk a lot about sadr because I think it's very important for us as Muslims to see that it wasn't just a philosophy, it wasn't just even a religion in the ordinary sense. It was a path that opens us to the reality, the actuality, the experience. Every day, who can resist? I get up, I do my ablutions. It's long before the prayer time. I start doing zikr. By the time it's Fajr, I'm already in paradise. Then do the prayer, you see? So that's maybe a strange way of putting it, but that's how I understand it.
Very interesting. So I've prepared questions, but I'll keep it aside now. So tell us more about your personality and أفمن شرح الله صدره للإسلام, or ألم نشرح لك صدرك, regarding the Prophet. So the idea of الصدر وشرح الصدر, and in your daily life, in your experience, in your journey. So how can a person live this spirituality and feel it and feel the realities of the Quran and just like to live it, an ordinary person who would like to seek such spiritual beauty or reality or levels. So what are the manifestations of that? How can a person have a link and a connection to God or to the reality in his life and his experience? And so tell us, keep a mirror on your life and tell us some of the lessons, for example.
Well, the thing is, again, I'm an ordinary person. I'm a carpenter, as I said. And also, when I was young, like many people, you have times that are dark. You have times that are difficult. And so the thing is that when I was young, I went through a difficult period of time, very difficult period of time. And so I thought at the time, this is terrible, because maybe I will be, I even have to say then, if I truthfully, that I even at some time was thinking suicide. So like many people, this is the human condition, especially the Western world, but it's the human condition. So it's important that we are weak. We recognize our weakness. We recognize our limitations. And actually, this is exactly, I think, what our Lord wants for us, that we see how imperfect we are, how weak we are. So we turn then to our Lord. So in a way, you could say that every human being, he didn't say that he only breathed into some people and not other people. His breath, his spirit is in all people. So even the worst person can redeem themselves, you see? And that's honestly how I felt. Believe me, I felt completely lost as a young man, even though I was studying all of these things. In fact, you could say a person who is lost, they study too much because they're looking for some way. And so I think all people, if they wanted to, they would then say, all right, what is the solution? He says, God says in Quran, he says, come and ask me for forgiveness. Come and ask me for help. And that's when the key for any person, if they take that opportunity and then they start to realize, now I have found at least some safe place for myself, of safety, because I found a way to turn to God. But even then, there's going to take years. This thing, I was not until 40 years old, maybe, I didn't have any profound spiritual experience in the sense we're talking about sadr. One has to obviously go through first the life and the stresses and the difficulties of life, and that actually prepares us, cooks us, as the Sufis say. We get cooked, and we have to be cooked some more until we are delicious, you see. So we have to, and the best thing is that we turn to God. In my zikr, I am not just saying like La ilaha illallah or any of the others saying, I am reciting, I'm istighfar. It's a big part of my zikr. If I'm in zikr, I'm doing at least 20 minutes istighfar, because not to gain something over some other philosophy or saying, no, because I feel, I think what happens is that God wants us to talk to him as a personal God. He says, I am here. Turn to me. I love if whoever turns away from the religion, I will bring another people that I love. I love those people, and they love me. So that feels like God actually wants intimacy. Therefore, if he wants intimacy, we should speak directly to him, like the man Moses encounters in Masnavi, who's saying, "Oh, come, I will clean your clothes, I will pick the lice from your clothes, I will comb your hair." And Moses says, "Who are you talking to?" And he says, "I'm talking to God." He said, "That is blasphemy, it's kufr, what you're saying." But God says, "I did not send you to separate the people from me. I sent you to join the people to me." So in this version, God is reprimanding Moses. And yes, the story is a little bit more complicated, but there's this time in our lives. I think most people, if they admit it, that life is difficult, very difficult, and if they handle it correctly, they will be transformed by their own suffering. They will be transformed because if they can learn to turn to a greater power, to God's power and presence. For Westerners, there's a lot of people, they don't believe in this at all, as you know. It's like in much of the European world, they are either atheists or they just don't believe. Maybe they're not atheists, but they're agnostic, we say. And even an agnostic, one of the days it's going to happen, they will realize they cannot do it on their own. They cannot. They will have to turn somewhere, and then they will realize that there's that possibility. Not everyone, unfortunately, but inshallah, as many people as possible. Because to every one of them, God has put out his hand and said, "Come." He's put out his word and say, "I love you." Come, put out his word and say, "Turn to me." And so anybody could do that. So in my mind, there's no limitation. Maybe someone who is like a very high position, maybe it's worse for them because they already feel they are in a high position, very well established, but maybe they are suffering inside. Maybe they actually are suffering even though they were raised and born in a high position. So I think every human being at any moment has an opportunity to find this in themselves.
Very interesting. So you mentioned the ayah فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه, and also you mentioned the story of Moses and the shepherd in Mathnawi, and very great insights. So you mentioned at the beginning العطار, that you were reading العطار in your early age and before knowing Islam and before going through this path. So after this journey, let us go back to العطار. Or people like Attar, like Rumi and Hafiz, and this the Persian literature which you became very interested in. So if I can ask you about some of the most important treasures that you found in this heritage, what can you say? It's full of treasures, I know, but what comes in your mind first?
Well, the thing about Attar that was so interesting to a Westerner was the analogy of these birds who all have different characteristics, and then who had a guide, the hudhud, and this guide takes them to meet their king, the simurg. And so it's so exotic, it's so interesting. But Attar, I think he was trying also to teach Muslim. Now, these, whether it's Attar or Maulana Rumi, as you know, they are theologians. They are not crazy people. They are not people imposters. They are very good people. But they are using analogy and metaphor. Now, for example, Attar, he is talking about hudhud, and hudhud is, of course, a bird. And this bird, Solomon says, "Where is hudhud? If he doesn't show up here, I will punish him. Maybe I will kill him even." You see, this is in Quran. And then hudhud arrives, says, "Well, I'm here. I have gone to a place beyond where you can go. You see, he says this to Suleiman. And so if we say, well, that's very interesting, because he's the guide in the story about Simurgh. The next point is he talks about a woman in a kingdom where there was a woman who was the ruler. And this queen, we know she is Bilqis. Okay? Now, to give you an example of how my mind works, as I started to study those tales, I realized that if you look at the word Bilqis, and you do this sometime, just look it for yourself, and read it backwards. Bilqis is equal to Simurgh. You'll see. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't think so, because these people, like the Sufis, they're using all kinds of interesting devices, abjad, and they're using analogy, but this is a perfect example. He's creating a story, and he's choosing the Simurgh is a well-known idea. It's this amazing bird that lives in Mount Qaf, is like almost impossible to arrive to. But if we pay more attention and we look at these words, you see, like let's say we take hudhud, for example. So if we have hudhud, we will have the abjad that will give us life. You see the meaning of life, for example. If we do the abjad, you can see for yourself. But so you have these things that are in the Quran that these people like Attar, they believe that the Quran has an inherent abjad that is divine, and then they also believe that it's okay for human beings not to change anything in the Quran, but rather to use it as a way to draw people in. So the thing to understand is, for me, when I started to realize this, because my mind had the way of thinking this way, and I had read, as I mentioned, people like Ali Shah and others, they had talked about abjad, and so when I saw this, I thought, well, I wonder if I could try to understand this. Now, what I just told you about Bilqis, for example, is not in any of the things I read. It was by looking at the Quran, or looking and trying to understand what is the story like in Quran, and what is the story like in terms of Mantiqul Tair. And for me, Mantiqul Tair was a great mystery. I spent years looking at it, thinking about, for example, the Asma al-Husna, and how we each of us have different characteristics. And so therefore, I was thinking all of these birds he's describing, they are like my friends. We all are different. We are all birds, but we are all different from each other. We are going on a journey, and that journey is going back to the one, going back to God. But there's a guide, and as I said, the hudhud is in the Quran. The hudhud has this really astonishing position, you see. And so at any rate, so I remained very interested in that story over the years, and I read, and I started to learn Persian, because I thought I have to start slowly but surely learning a little bit of Persian. And so I actually contacted the United Nations office in San Francisco. I said, if you have any Iranian refugees, I will gladly be a volunteer and show them around. So this one young Iranian who was actually left and went to India, and because he was actually, I guess you could say he was an atheist, and he was contrary to the regime there, so he went to India. And when he came to San Francisco, I was linked up to him by the UN office, and in my hand I had a book that was the Rubaiyat of Umar Khayam, because that was very famous, as you know, in the Western world. We also were reading this is before Rumi, because you asked me also about Rumi, but Rumi is more complicated in a way. At this stage, the Khayyam, everywhere, there were clubs everywhere in England, United States. Everybody was fascinated by Khayyam. The only thing we were wondering is, why is there so much drinking? But of course it was not necessarily the actual drinking, it was a different drinking, you see. And so what happened is this Ali Zul Anwar was this Iranian young man, and he later confided to me that he thought that the American police put a person for every Iranian coming in. He didn't realize I was just wanting to be his friend. So he looked at the Omar Khayyam, and he was shocked. Like, why would I be interested in this? But nevertheless, he was the first person I'm learning Persian from, actually. And he spoke very little English, so I'm teaching him English. He's teaching me Persian. But we're using Omar Khayyam as the medium. And as you know, Omar Khayyam is a pretty sophisticated quatrains, but it's full of wisdom. Some people say it's not Sufi. My teacher disagreed with that. He says, no, Omar Khayyam has Sufi poems in it, you see. So then from there, you asked about Rumi. Well, Rumi was also starting to become very well known, and I didn't encounter him till after Attar, but as we know, Rumi is supposed to be a student. Like, there's the idea that he met Attar and he takes the mantle of Attar. And so the thing there was the connection that I see there is in the Masnavi. You see the lineage. Now, I'll give you just one example where you have Rumi is going to use, he's going to quote from Sana'i. So he says, خوش بیان کرد آن حکیم غزنوی بهر محجوبان مثال معنوی که ز قرآن گر نبیند غیر قال این عجب نبود ز اصحاب زلال که از شعاع آفتاب پرز نور غیر گرمی می نیابد چشم کور. Very interesting poem, because he's quoting from his ancestor, like even before Attar, the Sana'i, and he's quoting from him, and he says, the great teacher of Ghazna, who is Sana'i, has given this apt comparison, this apt comparison for those people who are veiled. I'll say it in English, but you know perfectly well the line, but it's just for the case, because English is good for this, because then people can understand. So, is it for the people who are veiled, who, if they don't understand the inner meaning of the Quran, it's no big surprise. They are the people who are lost. They're actually lost. Ashab Zalal, they're lost on the roadway. He says, but then the last line, very interesting, but from the shining rays of the sun. The blind person only experiences the heat. So this is very interesting, because he's not saying that nothing comes of it. It's the light, the sun. So there's obviously, as we know, we're out in the sun, we feel the heat. And if we have eyes that are working, we see the light. And he's saying, for those people who don't really understand Quran, they only receive the heat. Nothing wrong with the heat. It was cold. That's wonderful. But what about the seeing? How important that is. And so he's showing the difference. I think, most of us think, that he's showing that what happens if you take the Islam and the Quran And then you think, it'd be like a bottle of medicine, and it's on your shelf, and you just see it, yep, bottle of medicine, bottle of medicine, bottle of medicine, but now you open it and you drink the medicine. The difference is you are now, your eyes are healed and you are now seeing. So for me, Sadr is so much about seeing inside, seeing, feeling, seeing the actual light during zikr and so forth. So I guess you could say the transition for me when I started thinking of Quran was Rumi is showing me that the Quran is not just an ordinary religious document, and it's not just about the wars and this and that, but it has elements in it of all kinds of things for humanity. And like we said earlier in the divine names, it's necessary. The divine names are God's creation is full of all kinds of events. His own people, Quraysh, want to wipe them out. They are. People say, oh, you know, the in Quran they're only just attacking the Jewish people or this people. There's just no. You look at Quraysh. You say God is very furious with Quraysh, and the things in the Quran are very harsh against Quraysh. So you cannot say that God is not reprimanding the Muslims. I would say there's much more. If you read all of that, you see clearly that it's a fair game. Meaning, if you're looking at God is reprimanding any way he turns away. I see a God who is sad, who loves, who wants people to love him like he loves them, and he's like a sad lover. These people are not praying the way he wants. He wants them not like robots. He wants them to love. When he says, some people come to see them and they hear the qira'at and they start crying. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, look, we were once. You see, so it's also possible to become inured, we say, to become like you forget how magnificent, you see, how magnificent the Quran, the verses are. But if you have this seeing that Rumi's talking about, you're too ecstatic. So if you see the verse, you cannot help it. You feel the power of the verse. So this is an interesting thing where I realized for the first time that the Sufis, like what Al-Ghazali said, there's a level where you can actually understand what's in Quran. And as you know, Al-Ghazali wrote so many books about Islam and so forth. But he says so many interesting things. The most interesting is where Rumi, of course, is also getting his teaching, is that you have to take the Quran and you actually have to take it in. You cannot just look at it. You have to take it inside. So that's what really for me, it solved a lot of difficulties. I was not. I cannot be a saint. I become angry. I think I have full of faults, and now I'm reading Quran and I'm saying, it's accepting all the things, it's describing all of these things. I feel like I'm at home, because it is not saying, oh, I will become like Jesus. I cannot become like Jesus. You see, I am not pure like that. So when I'm reading Quran and I'm finally seeing, like finding a home for myself in terms of the religion, which religion, I feel at home. I feel at home because Rumi has helped me to understand what the purpose of it is, to understand the levels of it. And so that is really the way that this unfolds for me. And when after 9/11, I was with my friends, they said, we have a meeting. We have a meeting in Mill Valley where I live in that time. And what are you going to say? I said, well, I've been in Afghanistan. I'm going to talk about that. And they said, well, are you going to say anything about Islam? I said, yes, I'm going to get up and I'm going to say I'm Muslim. And they said, but you never said to anybody that you were a Muslim. I said, why now? He says, now is the time. If you were going to get up and say you're Muslim, you better do it now, because you're going to try to talk about, therefore you have the possibility of explaining to people that there are people who are not good people, who misuse Islam, and then that doesn't mean that most of the Muslims are bad. So that's starting from that time, I did that. And I lost 2/3 of my friends because there's prejudice. I don't care. Fine. If that's what it takes, no problem. I'm still going to explain what I know about the beauty of Islam, about the dangers in. That's what I mean when Rumi says about Chashmekur. See, it has its own problem. If the person is blind, why are they talking to other people about the sunrise? The fanatics. If they are blind, why are they talking about the sunrise? It should be somebody who is seeing who should talk about the sunrise. I think you follow my description. And so as I say, I found my home.
Very interesting. And the name that you chose for yourself, Abdalhai, there is much to say about that also. It's connected to your experience and journey too much. It's about the استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم, or what Quran says about الحياة الطيبة also. So interesting you chose this name. And you were talking that when reading عطار, and then when understanding عطار and the divine names that shapes the different souls of people also. And here is a very interesting theme, and all people who are true spiritual seekers, and especially people who study Persian mystical literature, عطار, رومي, حافظ, Sa'di, Sana'i, Shibisteri, this is a main theme there, and I guess you have something to say, the pluralist theme. So you mentioned that you were in a Christian society, your mother was a Christian, and then you are a Muslim, and then you are interested in Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism, and you're reading in these stuff and such. So what does those people have to say about respecting a human as a human, or respecting all different colors of people who are all at the end of the day are going back towards God, because inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So which kind of deep spiritual pluralistic view you understood, or you were taught from these great Persian poets?
Well, the first point is that when I met Ustad Khalili, I was, you see, because given my name, which is Dar, which is Robert Dar, and he and other people, they were saying, well, you could be Haidar, you could be Sikandar. So I actually am Sikandar for a period of time, because locally you have a local name, you see. So all of a sudden I have a local name, as my name is Robert Dar, so I become Sikandar. Now when I go up to the north of Afghanistan and I meet the Naqshbandiya who are at Maimana, so there's the province of Maimana, there I meet a great teacher. I meet the first Sahib Jazba, that person who has tangible spirituality. The next thing that happens is that I do zikr there, and what happens is interesting. I'm not Muslim yet, and I explain to them I am Christian. I am actually Unitarian, but I'm the only Christian. And there's a very, in Inspire the Heart, there's a chapter where some Sufis come actually from another province. They say, we want to meet the Christian who is helping us. But when I was doing practices there, what happened is, for the first time, I had what we call like a spiritual opening there. And the manifestation was energy, light, was life, you could say. So that's how I got named Abdulhai, because we're traveling. There was an Abdulhai traveling, but that's not, I didn't get his name. I got it from the sheikh who said, your name should be Abdulhai. Why? Because you are the servant of the living one. And that's when I started to say, okay, then what does that mean? It means in the divine names, this is a very important name, Hai. And so I get the name that way because it's actually giving me the name based on the reaction I have in the zikr. So I become Abdulhai. When I go back to the United States, I become Khilvati, because my teacher there, he says to me, he doesn't take away Abdulhai, he just says, you are Abdulhai Khilvati, because I am a person, I'm in the forest now. I showed you the forest. I live in the forest. I believe in the sacredness of the being alone, worship, especially if a person is older, they should spend time, if possible, in my opinion, they should spend time for what time they have left. Whatever time they have left, they should spend that time. So I became several names. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is it introduced me to the idea of the divine names, and the more I studied that, the more I thought, this is even more interesting to me, that actually the Quran has a psychological format as well as a spiritual format. So there's a psychology that I also learn about in the East. Now, why is that? Because for one thing, I'm in northern Afghanistan, not in Pakistan. What's the difference? Abdurrahman Jami, for example, one of the last of the Naqshbandis, how does he feel about Sheikh Ibn Arabi? Very positive. How about the other teachers there? He feels especially positive about Sheikh Ibn Arabi, and by then Rumi has also become very, very accepted. At first, of course, Rumi was rejected. The Masnavi was so, they said, filthy, like you should pick it up with a tong because it's so filthy, you see. Because Rumi wanted to include, like the ocean has many fish, some this fish, this. So he includes things that most people, they thought it was not correct, you see. But in the north of Afghanistan, you have the Naqshbandi path, and they are, what do they accept the teaching of Sheikh al-Akbar, which if you went to Pakistan, there are a lot of people that were against that. So when you look at the Mujahidi line, they're wonderful people. I don't mean to in any way denigrate it, but if we were to say, why is there, what psychology is in northern Afghanistan? So if you are looking in Fus al-Hikam, then that was being read in the north of Afghanistan from whenever even it began. You see, it spread very rapidly. So if you read Ismail, you have the idea of Rabbi Khas. So if you've read it, then you know there's this idea of the particular Lord. So if you have a particular Lord, it means that, like, for example, if I'm Abdulhai, then my Lord, particular Lord, is Hai. You see, that's how they're thinking about it. And so you now are going to realize that. So you are not trying to become a different name. You are trying to become who you are. And you're trying to find your
Relate to
particular...
your real name or your real connection with God. Or...
Yes, and this to me is an amazing idea. See, because I was also, as I told you, when I was young, I was in trouble. I would go see psychologists and so forth, and so I knew a lot about psychology. Because most people who go and study psychology is because they have something they want to fix for themselves. You see, so I knew a lot about psychology actually, and so now I'm finding what I would call a new psychology. Now, obviously, in the Quran, you have the 3 nafs, so it's not like there's no psychology already in Quran, but this is more like a more detailed thing. So from that, I realize that I now need to study carefully this psychology that really goes back to Sheikh al-Akbar, and as applied, being applied so then if you have khasiyat, so if you have khasiyat that is a particularity, and then now, just like a bird flying and you see the shadow on the ground, the negative part or the darker part of that bird is the shadow on the ground. And I am that person. I am not. You see? So there's an interesting psychology, the relationship between my faults, my difficulties, and my rabikhas. So in other words, the cure is to understand that I must follow a path. This is a huge thing in my mind, huge in Islam. Most people don't realize how significant of an advancement in psychology. We would say psychology. They didn't say it that way. We would say it that way. But it is psychology. It is about the nafs, basically. And if you're talking about the nafs, you're saying, well, who's the ruh of this nafs? What is the nature of that? And how is it related to it? So to me, that was like a very big opening, and so because when I was young, I went to different kinds of psychology. My feeling about religion is the same. So to answer your question there, I thought I should know the other religion. There's a video you'll see of me, because I posted it. I was in France, because I was raised in Tahiti, so I speak French. I was raised in French culture. And I'm walking in Le Marais. I don't know if you know that neighborhood, but it's a Jewish neighborhood. Now, if you go to that video, because it's online there, you'll see that suddenly, now I've been doing my zikr in the morning, so I was pretty in a nice place. And I'm walking, and there's some Orthodox Jews, which you can see in the video, and they're trying to get recruits. So they stop me on the road. They say, they sort of see my nose and my face. They say, "Excuse me, sir, are you Jewish?" And I said, well, maybe my mother was Jewish, possibly, because she is Abreu. She's from the Abreu clan, meaning even though they're Catholic, a lot of those Catholics converted from Judaism to Catholicism because they wanted to continue living in that part of the world, you see. So I said, and they said, well, in that case, you're definitely Jewish because your mother. I said, no, I said she might be Jewish. They said, well, that's okay. And you'll see in the video, they want then to bring me in, and they attach all of these Jewish things, and then they start dancing, and you'll see, if you look at it, you see I'm totally in paradise. I'm dancing with them, and I'm laughing in my heart because I'm thinking, oh Allah, how kind this is. You provide these people. They are from another religion. They're from the same family of religion, and now I was Christian, and I'm remaining Muslim, but I now also can feel what it's like for their joy for that moment. You see, so in other words, yes, a lot of people object to that. They say you should not recognize that religion, or you shouldn't. And I say, why not? They are all from God's religions at different times. Why would we don't, it's not going to harm, if it harms our Islam, then we have a problem there. But if it doesn't, if it enhances, makes our Islam more beautiful, more shining, then why not? Why not enjoy what God has made in other people. The only one, of course, I would not accept some devil worshiper or something like this, but you see, other than that, you say they are turning to God, as Ibn Arabi says. Now, isn't that what we learn from Ibn Arabi? That he says, everyone is on their path, and all of them are going in the same direction. He says, I believe in the religion of love and the caravans of love. You see, so Ibn Arabi, in other words, had a huge impact on all of us and Westerners, especially because it becomes philosophical. So they have more problem with Rumi. A lot of these people, the ones, especially professors and so forth. Mind you, I'm not against that. I'm just saying that's the truth. They want a fabulous philosophy, psychology, spirituality, all the most complicated and intricate and advanced, you see, we would say, compared to him being a kafir in other people's minds, you see. So it's very interesting how the Western world has latched on to Rumi, but very often the Rumi, as you know, is translated. It's a little bit too, I always say, they have sold the frosting on Rumi's cake. So you know how cake has frosting. And so a lot of the translation, they provide you with the frosting, but not the cake. So you are getting, it's too sweet. It's too,
out of his context. They present him completely out of his context.
Yes, exactly. They've taken it very often out of his context. That's why those people like myself, we wish to translate it as close as we can, but still that it's nice to listen to, you see, but not to change the meaning, but to keep the meaning.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you mentioned the religion of love, and here I recall from one of your lectures where you were talking about the comparison between Sufism and Buddhism and Taoism. So you mentioned that all religions have one spirit, and you quoted Farabi when he says that all religions have one source, but our imaginations about it differs. And then here, so I'll ask you about love and the centrality of love in the Persian literature and in spirituality in general. So you say this verse from Hafiz, I guess. چیست معراج فلک این نیستی عاشقان را مذهب و دین نیستی. So they're talking about the non-being and the mi'raj. If you mention this verse again in Persian and then explain it to us, and also about the centrality of love and the importance of that.
Yeah, so this is Rumi in this case. So چیست معراج فلک این نیستی. So we have the idea of the blessed Prophet, peace be upon him, and he has miraj, as we know, as Muslim. The imagery is very beautiful. He's rising up into the different levels of heavens. And Rumi here is saying, what is that actually about? Meaning for not only for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but for us. What does that mean for us? It means that that there's nisti. We would call it in English, the best way to call it, I think, would be the fertile void. We have an expression in English. It means that it is empty, but it is massively full. Like it is non-being, but it is massively full of energy and potential life and so forth. So there where he says, Chist miraj falak in nisti, ashiqan ra mazhab u din nisti. So for the lovers, the ashiqan ra mazhab it's their religion, it's their sect, and it's their religion, you see? So for the lovers, ashiqan, and ishq, of course, is used in the context of divine love. So if we give it another example, like what you're talking about, it's very famous, then we would say where he says, هیچ کس را تا نگردد او فنا نیست را در بارگاه کبریا چیست میراج فلک این نیستی عاشقان را مذهب و دین نیستی. So it comes from that line. in this very, very important expression of Rumi's and throughout. So very important also, therefore, if I were to advise anyone to understand Rumi, he gives us a nardaban, he gives us a ladder, but he does it in reverse. So he says, Ay khuda jan ra tu benma an maqam kan daru be harf miruyad kalam ta ke sazad jan pak az sar qadam سوی عرصه دور پهنای عدم عرصه بس باگ و شاد و با فضا وین خیال و هست یابد زو نوا. You see, so that's the part of the ladder from the top of this ladder. So this is a very important, this is his munajat. This is a munajat, but really a lot of munajat is not only about how someone feels, they're actually trying to teach you by saying that munajat. You see? So this lovely one, Ay khuda jan ra tu ben ma'an maqam, oh God, show the pious soul that level. Kandaru beharf miruyad kalam, where the words are sprouting up without letters, without visual letters. These are the divine names, you see. And then so he goes on to there about ای خدا جان را تو بین ما آن مقام کنده رو به حرف میروید کلام تا که سازد جان پاک از سر قدم سوی عرصه دور پهنای عدم, so that the head can become like a foot racing through the vast expanses of non-being, you see? So coming back to the idea of non-being, in my mind, it's extremely related to sadr. Because if you say, where can I verify what Rumi's saying? There's only one place you can verify it, in your own experience of your own heart. He is not a fake, he is not a liar, he is not nobody, he is a theologian. He gives khutbahs. He has a strong pedigree. So why does he write such weird poetry, sometimes dirty jokes and everything? Because, like I said, he's trying to include every element of life. He's trying to be realistic. But the thing that's important to Rumi, from start to finish, it's going to be about Nisti, or Adam. In the Persian, of course, it's going to be Nisti. And the thing about Nisti can mean two things also. It can mean that when I'm sitting in zikr, I am actually seeking to become nabut, to become, to lose myself. And the easiest way is I sit there, like I said to you earlier, and I keep doing the zikr until pretty soon he's like erasing a blackboard. And at some point, this is the harder thing for people to understand, is fana. Now, a lot of people say, I had fana because I did this zikr, and then I was completely obliterated, and then I came back to myself, and I always say to them, well, that's kind of like what happens to me every night when I go to sleep. You see, I just lose consciousness, and then I wake up. I said, no, this is not the fana that Rumi's talking about. The fana he's talking about is that I lose my sense of myself so completely that all that's left is my participation, my without self, but not knowing me. I remember what happened. I remember the vastness, not only doing it, I remember the vastness coming out of it. So it's a very important distinction that we are intended at the deepest level to be that witness of God's own presence. So, as you know, in Quran it says, so Shahidallahu innahu la ilaha illahu. God is the witness. Shahidallahu. He is the only witness of there is no God but me. So that for Rumi is also the notion of Nisti. You are not there. You are not doing the zikr. He is now doing the zikr. He was always doing the zikr. You were not needing a spirit. You already had spirit. You just needed the veil to pull away. You see? So Rumi's teaching is very helpful. It's he is dead, but his teaching is alive. His teaching is complicated, and in the West it's been, as you say, what can you say? It's just sad, really. It's not. It's food. It's the most delicious food, and all that's happened now is they're giving you the bag of the food is in. You see, so Rumi, in my mind, is such a great teacher for us, and his credentials are impeccable. And yet, many people, as you know, the conservative people, they reject it because they are having difficulty as usual between Tanzi and Tashbih. They're so on the side of Tanzi. They say they want nothing. God is way beyond this. And the wonderful thing about Sheikh al-Akbar, he comes to correct this misconception. And I'm a sailor, as I told you. So he talks about the two eyes. He talks about the eye of Tanzi and the eye of Tashbih. And he says very often people only have one eye. The mullahs, he says very often they only have the eye of Tanzi. And I said, well, that's like pirates when they wear a patch on the other eye, you see. As growing up on sailing ships, where I think they wear patches on their eye because usually they've been in a fight or something like this. But what Sheikh Akbar wants is that you understand both domains are important, and Rumi, as you know, comes directly after Sheikh Ibn Arabi. Does not. Some people say he met them, but I don't think so. The evidence is not good that Rumi met Ibn Arabi. However, they have a similar worldview put in different language. Rumi's putting it in a very visual language that if you speak Persian or understand Persian, it is so easy to absorb. Ibn Arabi is a great thinker, and his teachings are much harder to understand, and that's where the intellect has to be strong enough to understand what he's saying. With Rumi, the focus is on heart, but also on thinking through. So Rumi they're both amazing teachers. We are very lucky to have them, and so that's how when I bring teaching, like when we say these different other teachings, of course, when I teach about Buddhism and Sufism and all that, it's because I have learned from, in that case, especially from Sheikh al-Akbar, the unity of the religions and the purpose, and because I wish for peace. If you wish for peace, you try to recognize other people's religions, and you try to show the unity of spirituality, the unity of turning to what we would call God, and somebody else may say just the fertile void. They're not saying there's no the word. They have trouble with one thing called the word God. They just have trouble with a word. You see, and we don't care. We are happy with that word. We are happy that he's either beyond. If he's Tanzi, then he is Allah. But if he's a Rab in the Quran, mostly we are being guided by our Lord is in Quran, and that's made very clear. So at the same time, you understand, yes, he's beyond everything, impossible for us to understand, and at the same time, he is with us wherever we are. He is always with us, and he allows us. He says, because he says, "My earth and my heaven cannot contain me, but the sadr and the heart of my servant, the faithful one."
ما وسعني أرضي ولا سمائي ولكن وسعني قلب عبدي المؤمن.
Yes, and so this is an experience. This is not an idea, not a philosophy. This is a reality. And if God, now I realize the hadith may be open to criticism, but the fact is, the people who experience that, like Rumi, the poem earlier I mentioned about his nardaban, his ladder. It's exactly about that. He's saying that there's a I won't go. It's a longer. It's not no point in going to all the way. But at the other end of the ladder, you're at the lower rung, and you're trying to climb up this ladder. And you have your nafs amare. You have all kinds of things happening, and you're trying to get free from the those parts of the nafs that is really. I mean, I'm going to talk about myself. I think most of my life I have wasted in the nafs. Most of my life I was a prisoner. And so I'm not talking about other people necessarily. I'm talking about I know, and as I said to you, and I still cannot escape. When I get angry, I just say to God, oh God, forgive me. And you are Qahar, and I am the shadow of Qahar, but I have no right. But you see what I mean? So even in the fault in Islam, even when you have fault, you're not ashamed because you realize it's part of the Asma al-Husna. And you realize that there's going to be Jalali and Jamali, and you're going to be reflecting these. But most of my life, honestly, I think I wasted most of my life on pleasure, on satisfaction, on you see what I mean? So it's important to recognize that, and in Islam, as I said to you earlier, for me it's possible. It's not hard to admit these things because of the format and the presentation in Islam that is on the one hand seems simplistic and like flat world or whatever, and on the other hand is extremely advanced, extremely complex.
Very, very interesting insights, brother or Mr. Abdulhai, and I don't like for this interview to finish, so I just finalize with some of the insights. We'll see how it goes. So you also mentioned 2 points here in relation to comparative religion studies or the openness towards other religions, where you say that in Persian poetry they use the word Bud for any beloved, and it's taken from Buddha. This is one point. Another point, when you said when the Prophet he destroyed the idols near the Kaaba, around the Kaaba, he left the image of Mary, Jesus, and Ibrahim also. So if you'd comment on these 2 points and what do they mean?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is when the Muslim armies, coming to the first point you make, and they're going towards, they're spreading through the whole world. It's an astonishing thing. They go through Persia, they arrive at in Sindh in India, and they are, of course, asking those people, "Are you these are idols you're worshiping?" And in most cases, they're saying, "Yes, these are idols." And so they destroy those idols. Now, when they get to Afghanistan, they get to northern Afghanistan. They come to the Buddha statues. Now, fortunately for me, I was there before they were blown up, some of those Buddhas, these big Buddhas in Afghanistan. Now, I'm a modern person, but you look at them, and now imagine when they were all in gold and everything. And so in Bamyan, but actually when they arrived, they were in the north of Afghanistan towards Balkh in this area, and they see Maitreya. So they see the most astonishing Buddhas, and they don't know the name of them, and they say you are worshiping this, and the people, the Buddhists say, no, we would never worship that. This is a model. It's like a model for how you sit, how you. So they had a different attitude towards them than, say, for some of the other religions, which in the case of Iran, as you know, they had a dualistic religion, which is not accepted in Islam. You can only be one God only. So you cannot have, darkness and evil. And that's solved. The problem was solved in Islam with the divine names and with God's own self-description. But coming back to Buddha, so they find out this is Buddha. So they bring back the word Buddha, and the Buddha in the poetry becomes a major word, because just like in idol, like in Arabic poetry, sometimes your mistress or the one you love, they could suddenly use the word idol because it's true that your attention is drawn to this person. Agreed? So in the case of, that's why Shabestari, he says, Musulman gar bedanisti ke bud chist, bedanisti ke din dar bud parastist. So he says, if the Muslim knew, you asked me, why did I go to Iran at that time? There was like a big, they suddenly said, this book cannot be used, this book, see, they started censorship a lot. But, so, Musulman gad bedanisti ke bud chist, if the Muslim knew what the idol really was, bedanisti ke din dar bud parastist, they would know that there can be worship on the idol, you see. There's religion in idol worship. Why? Because Shabbos study says, he says, consider the verse, in men shay'in illa yusabihu bihamdihi, walakin la tafqahuna tasbihahu. He says, God says, there's not a thing in the whole universe, in the whole world, in men shay'in illa yusabihu bihamdihi, except that it is worshiping God. It is praising God. Yusabihu bihamdihi. But you don't understand its praise, he says. Meaning the people don't understand the nature of that praise, which is true for most people. Because how can we understand what a leaf is saying? How can we understand what a Buddha statue is saying? So Shabbos started, he's trying to make a point to the fanatical religious people who cannot see this, and he says basically, in other words, if it's true that everything is praising God, then this Buddha statue must also be praising God, because God says every single thing must be praising. So if you cannot see, so he says to those people, if you cannot see the spirit inside of this, it means that you do not understand in men shay'in illa yusabihu bihamdi. You don't understand because God says that. So if you don't accept that, then it's your problem, actually. So it opens an amazing realm where we as Muslims, we actually are being asked, and this is coming back to the ecumenical thing with other religions, we're being asked to see the religion in virtually anything like that. And then if a person develops insight, then actually they will hear and they will see when they come out from the zikr, and if they have had fana, they will see the leaf is praising God. They will see that themselves. It's not like just some random sentence in Quran. No, they will see that their eyes, they see the majesty in nature. When I am myself, I never see the majesty. I see a little bit. If I go and do zikr, I go out and God shows me the majesty. So this is how important Islam is and how important it is to understand everything.
But also you mentioned, Doctor, about when the Prophet, he destroyed the idols near the Kaaba, he didn't destroy them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now this is, as you know, this is we are told this, and some people don't accept this, some people do accept this, but the whole idea there is that, again, you have the sort of the circle around Kaaba, 360 degrees. You literally have, every degree you turn, there's another idol, and so the idols, of course, we understand why. Now, as you know, the whole problem starts up is, why are there 360 idols? Because it's a big commercial venture. It is like Costco Plus, people come from all over the place. There are all of these idols there. People are selling. Makkah is the place that's all happening. The Quraysh, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is ruining business. He wants to ruin the business. That's the problem for them. It's not, I think their biggest problem is they're worried about their status and they're worried about their business. Because when you look at why are they so upset, who cares? Why should they care? Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, I'm revealed, this is I'm revealed. If they don't, they just leave it. But they had a lot to lose. That's the problem. They had a huge amount to lose. So after all the fighting and everything, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Muslim, they come in. Of course, they're going to take out the idols, because that was the whole point, the whole complaint. God says is Tawheed. This is the reality is Tawheed. And it doesn't mean there's not room for, like what Shabastari says, or like what he also says in Quran, that everything is worshiping God necessarily, meaning fundamentally. But at the same time, the idols, they make people attached to nafs. They failed then to feel the Spirit of God. They may not then have a good future. So the whole idea of destroying the idols is to try to give people a chance to have a better eternal future, a better correct relationship. And so I'm just explaining what I have read. Some people don't accept that, some people do accept that. The whole idea that inside that the whole thing is so sacred that you have this image of Mary, and some people say, well, there were other images. That I don't know. But I was using that as an example when I bring that up, because to me that's the fundamental thing. Makkah it should have been the shrine and place of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and it turned into a market. It's just like the Western world today with so many, like all of us, we have to look and say what. Even now, even you go to Makkah now, if you go there, it could be. You could argue that, hey, you know what? This is it's losing the jazba. It's being drained by the people there, and it becomes commercial. You become commercial. It's very sad, and so that's how I think about it.
Just before we finalize, Mr. Abdulhai, so just I want to ask about the special days that you had in life. So the day that you chose finally that today I'm transforming to Islam, do you recall it? What was so special about that day, and why you waited until you became 40 or 43? You mentioned 91, so 91, I guess you was there in the beginning of the 40s. So it was a journey until you reached to a peak point that you took this decision, or it came when it came, or how it is. And that day specifically, you had a special feeling or experience about it?
Because so in 1991, I was at Rumi's tomb. Now, prior to that time, for years, because I was also a student of Humayun Etemadi, the great painter and the king's cousin. And so I said to Humayun Etemadi, he said, I'm going to be fasting. And I said, can I fast with you? And he said, oh, you want to fast? You are becoming Muslim. I said, no, I don't know. I just want to know, is it possible for me to succeed? Because how can I fast for 30 days? This is very difficult. So I did that for 3 years with him. And I did all the fast, everything. He and I were together in Islamabad, in Peshawar. We were in Peshawar, and he was with me because he was teaching some of his students there. So I was very close to him. Ustad Khalili had died, but Humayun Etemadi was his friend, and Humayun Etemadi was the great painter, and he taught me miniature painting. So I was very close to him. And I remember I was with him in the third year when I was fasting. And at the end of the fast, we were in Peshawar, and everybody, there was like dozens of people, because I was running the organization. They said, we know he's going to come into Islam. We know he's going to come into Islam. And it didn't happen. And they were so disappointed. I felt so badly, because they thought, for sure, I've done the fast, and it was hot. It was hot in Peshawar. And even with all of that, I stuck with it. And experienced it, and then And so they thought, for sure, he's now going to, we're just waiting. In fact, there was a feast, and everybody was anticipating. Maybe there was a rumor. And I said, no, I'm just very happy to be with you, Muslim. I'm very happy to do the fast. And I could tell they were disappointed. So about a year or two later, I'm in Konya. I'm sitting in a hotel. I'm doing zikr. And I have the nur, the massive light. And my eyes are closed, and I feel also a great presence. And then when I come out of that, I'm thinking, it's time. I'm going to come into Islam. So I go and I see friends there. We go to the mosque, the beautiful, the qira'at, the beautiful place to come into Islam. And it's not busy. In those days, believe me, a third full, the mosque, or less. That's when I come into Islam, because the game is over. I realize I don't need to keep testing myself. Will I succeed? Will I not succeed? If I don't succeed, I will just turn to Allah and ask forgiveness. If I succeed, then, you see what I mean? I got rid of all of the reasons. So that's how that happened. But it was not until 1991. And right after that, when I came to the United States, and I had lost the Sahib Jazba I knew in Afghanistan. He was gone. I could never find him again. That's when I met Ras Mohammad Zareh, the great Sahib Jazba, who was living, all the time he was living near me in California. And I didn't know that. And so then I met him, and then I became his student for a long time, 20 years or so, yeah.
Very interesting. So, Mr. عبدالحی، آخرین سوال با زبان فارسی از شما میپرسم که زبان فارسی برای شما چرا اینقدر جذاب و جالبه؟ زبان فارسی برای شما چرا اینقدر مهمه و جذابه؟ اگر به زبان فارسی هم جواب بدید که شما چقدر زبان فارسی رو دوست دارید و چقدر زندگی کردید با زبان فارسی و چقدر بهره‌مند شدید از همین میراث دیگه عرفانی فارسی و مولانا و سعدی و سنایی و چیزی اضافه کنید که قبلا نگفتید که ما هم استفاده کنیم با همین زبان زیبای فارسی شما.
من که در پشاور بودم، اونجا که دفترم اونجا بود و که چیزی اول ما گفتم که جای ما، یعنی از خانه که کرا گرفتیم که در پشاور بود، گفتم من هیچ آمریکایی قبول نمی کنم یا اروپایی قبول نمی کنم، تنها فقط افغانا فارسی زبانا که بعد به این خانه قبول میکنم. روز شب تنها فقط در فارسی میخوام صحبت کنم. با من انشالله که آهسته آهسته که کمک کنید. شما که میخواید که انگلیسی میخواید یاد بگیرید، با من پرس که من خودم لازم است که فارسی را باید یاد کنم. چرا؟ که کار من بود که من میخواستم که کمک مردم افغانستان بکنم و دیگر که اینطور شیرین است دیگر که بسیار منظم نسبت به انگلیسی بسیار عجیب و غریب است، بسیار مشکل است برای مردم از خارج که میگن که انگلیسی بسیار مشکل است. با نظرم فارسی، من میگفتم با رفیقا و دوستا گفتم که فارسی لسان ملل متحد باید باشد، از اینکه اینطور مقبول است، منظم است و بهترین لسان است. و دیگر چیزی که ما میگیم Indo-European language، یعنی عربی مشکل است، از اینکه اما که سانسکریت، فارسی تا لسان‌های اروپایی تمامش از یک ریشه آمدند و از آن خاطر برای من آسان بود و من نمیفهم چرا زود یاد گرفتم. دیگران گفتم که خب چطور شما یک ماه پیش شما بسیار کم صحبت کردید که الان بسیار خوب، بسیار آسان بود برای من، فضل خدا. و از خاطر که بسیار شیرین هم است و من میخوام که مولانا میخوام بخونم، شبستری دیگرها میخواستم، یعنی که توش نبودم و فارسی بسیار دوست دارم. دری مخصوصا دری، یعنی دری فارسی یک چیز است ولیکن دری یک چیز دیگر است که و من که دری یاد گرفتم. So that's what happened.
و درسته که زبان فارسی زبان عشقه، همون دیگه عشق خیلی استفاده میشه تو ادبیات فارسی، چه مولانا چه حافظ چه سعدی چه سنایی و عطار و اینا. چطور اینا نیستن دیگه درباره عشق صحبت کنه؟ اصلا بعضیشون میگن اصلا دیگه زبان عشق همین فارسی، حتی عربی و انگلیسی نمیتونن همون دیگه عمق این مطلب و محوریت این دیگه دوستی و عشق بیان کنن مگر فارسی. درسته؟
واقعا که فارسی لسان عشق است و از اگر در انگلیسی مثلا یک وقت بود تقریبا 200 سال پیش نزدیکتر مثلا به امی کلتور از ادبیات فارسی در ما که شاعر از آن زمان بسیار شیرین بود انگلیسیشان و فارسی تا امروز فکرتان باشد که در 700 سال یا 500 سال هیچ تغییر نکرد. در شمال افغانستان در دره‌های مردم اونجایی که بسیار ساده هستن، اونجا هستن که چند صد سال اونجا یک لسان دری که یاد دارن که صحبت میکنن و هیچ تغییر نکنن. بسیار دلچسب است، عجیب و غریب است. انگلیسی هر سال هر 2 سال که تغییر میکنند و انگلیسی بسیار تکنیکی شد و بسیار گتوت شد و از آن خاطر که امی کلتور عشق، یعنی که میتونیم بگیم که فارسی بسیار لسان عشق، لسان شعر، لسان ادبیات بسیار قوی است نسبتاً انگلیسی. از عربی نمیتونم بگویم، فقط از اینکه من عربی در قرآن یاد میگیرم و این دیگر چیز است، یا بسیار کلان است، بسیار کلان است. ولیکن با اونجا هم در سوره یوسف هم جای هایی که دیده میشه، یعنی که عشق بسیار قوی میشه. لیکن من افسوسی که نتانستم تا الان که مثلا در صحبت که عربی استفاده میکنم، لیکن فارسی مثل که لسان خودم در طفلی بود که من که چند ماه 1 سال نمیرم اونجا فراموش نمیکنم، هنوز دارم. نسبتاً مثلا اسپانیایی زیاد رفتم اسپانیا دیگه نمیفهمم که یاد میگیرم پس فراموش میکنم. اما فارسی هیچ وقت فراموش نمیکنم. از لسان قلب، لسان ادبیات است، بسیار مقبول است.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, Mr. Abdulhai, what is the main thing in the West and in the Western world, in the secular world, in the globalized world that we're living today, that annoys you, that you feel it's the most negative point in the era that we're living?
I think when we see all of the difficulties in terms of politics, in terms of religion, we see a tremendous danger, but even more dangerous, as we know, all of us who are watching carefully, it is like some fish chasing some other fish, and then a shark comes behind and grabs them together, is global climate change. The change, I think, is going to be so immense in the next 50 years. It's already, we look around us, we see the impact. Then there's population has caused need. So people living in different countries, look at how much immigration, illegal immigration for people who just looking for a life, how many of them are rejected, their boats sinking, they're kidnapped for ransom. Think of all of the sadness. It is really distressing to look at the human condition and look at the unwillingness of most people to help each other, to accept each other. So this is very sad. And it's sad if you have children and grandchildren. So you're thinking, what's going to happen for my own children and grandchildren? What about all the other children? What about the wars? Look at all of the wars and all of the, we just see it. And this is, of course, dunya. This is, we have to say, this is the important thing. We say, I believe that this is what God has decided. I believe that I must accept that, because if people turn to His Spirit, they will accept. They will say, there's nothing we can do. It's all in His hands. But what He wants us to do is to try to be nice to each other, try to help each other. But when you look at the thing about Islam that was very important to me is it doesn't offer a strange God that is always doing only good things. You see, like a strange idea. It's much more complicated than that. It's an explosion of things coming into being, as you know, and within God's knowledge are all of the things that are either on the side of the mercy or on the side of the wrath. And He possesses those qualities that He says. So when I see these things, I still do not despair, because I'm thinking this was all intended to be this way. Yes, we are the puppets, we are the actors of this, but He is the one who says in the Quran, He says, no one can do anything good or bad without my influence and my permission. So from that point of view, Islam is comforting. So I'm not as annoyed as most people. When people say, well, the earth is going to be devastated because of global change, I say the earth is in the domain of spirit, and you can never destroy the spirit of nature, which belongs to the divine. So I'm actually not pessimistic in the way most people are. I simply do what I can. I see I feel sad, but I don't despair. I think this is what Allah Ta'ala has decided. And so I accept that.
Robert, thank you very much for all these beautiful insights that you shared with us today in these 2 hours. Thank you very much, and hopefully we can meet again through the net or there in the California.
One day, inshallah, I will be in those realms where you are living and your friends and so forth. There's so much in life. I'm older, but I still have the thirst for seeing more of the world, and inshallah one day we will encounter each other in person. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate that.